A 2,000-year-old scroll from the Roman town of Herculaneum has been digitally unwrapped.
Something extraordinary is happening beneath the dust of forgotten civilizations. For centuries, the world's most mysterious scripts lay unread, etched into bone, carved into wood, woven into cloth, silent, sealed, untouchable. But now, AI is cracking them open.
AI is helping scientists digitally unwrap this ancient.
And what these machines are revealing isn't mythology or poetry, it's warning after warning. Patterns of disaster, cycles of collapse, rituals meant to hold something back. These languages didn't fade, they were buried, erased, silenced. And now that AI is resurrecting their voices, one question becomes impossible to ignore. What were they trying to warn us about? Stay with us. When lost languages refuse to stay dead. Across continents and civilizations, fragments of writing lie scattered, etched into stone, pressed into clay, inked on papyrus, carved into wood, even woven into ancient fabric. For centuries, these messages were visible but mute. Scholars called them lost scripts, not because the writings vanished, but because their meanings did. They were puzzles with no keys, silent civilizations trapped behind unbreakable codes. But now, the silence is cracking. Artificial intelligence, built to sort selfies and recommend ads, has begun resurrecting languages no human has heard for thousands of years. Lines, symbols, and shapes once considered indecipherable are suddenly rearranging into patterns. These systems aren't reading like we do. They are detecting mathematical structures that even experts overlooked. And within those patterns may be warnings, histories, or revelations never meant for future eyes. Take the Indus script, over 4,500 years old, scattered across Pakistan and northwest India. Hundreds of symbols, repeating sequences, intricate carvings, and not a single confirmed meaning. No bilingual inscriptions, no translation keys, just an unbroken wall of symbols. It is like discovering an entire encrypted archive with the decoder missing. Or Rongo Rongo from Easter Island, carved in hypnotic glyphs that flip direction from line to line. Was it scripture, genealogy, myth, memory? When colonial collapse wiped out its keepers, the language died overnight. Today, not one living person can read what their ancestors wrote. Then there's Etruscan, the mysterious tongue spoken in Italy before Rome rose. We know the letters, we can pronounce the words. We've found thousands of inscriptions, but meaning? Almost none. Etruscan stands alone, with no linguistic relatives. It is a full library of texts from a culture whose voice has been severed from the human record. So why did these languages remain sealed for so long? Age alone isn't the answer. The truth is more complex. To decipher a script, scholars need volume, context, and, ideally, a bilingual guide. Without them, translation becomes speculation disguised as scholarship. And for most of history, that's all we had. Until AI stepped in. Artificial intelligence is not reading lost languages, it is revealing their hidden skeletons. Through neural networks and pattern-seeking models, researchers feed images of ancient symbols into systems that analyze their behavior rather than their meaning. These algorithms detect character groupings, structural parallels, symbol spacing, and repeated sequences. They may identify which symbols behave like nouns, which cluster like verbs, or which appear at sentence boundaries, all without understanding a single definition. Neural networks imitate the brain, learning through repetition. Pattern recognition systems isolate recurring shapes or alignments, hinting at grammar or syntax. Statistical modeling predicts how symbols interact, echoing how linguists study unknown languages. These methods already changed what we know about familiar texts. In 2021, AI revealed that the Dead Sea Scrolls, previously thought to be written by one scribe, were actually penned by two individuals whose handwriting differences were imperceptible to human eyes. Now, the same tools are confronting undeciphered scripts, and according to some researchers, the patterns emerging from these dead languages are unsettling. References to cycles of destruction, warnings before collapse, symbols repeating across civilizations that never met. Were these coincidences, cultural metaphors, or something more deliberate? The question is no longer, can we decode them? It is, should we? The scroll that should never have been read. In early 2024, a breakthrough shook academia and went almost unnoticed by the wider world. A scroll unreadable for nearly 2 millennia finally opened itself, not to a scholar, but to a machine. Inside was no ordinary text. According to those who've seen the fragments, it spoke of suppression, cycles of destruction, and the return of fire. A scroll that survived the death of a city had been guarding a warning no one was prepared for. To understand the significance, we travel back to AD 79. When Mount Vesuvius exploded, Pompeii became ash, but Herculaneum became something stranger. Instead of soft ashfall, suffocating pyroclastic waves blasted the city with furnace-level heat, carbonizing everything in an instant. Among the victims, an entire private library, its scrolls transformed into charcoal cylinders, too fragile to touch, too fused to unroll. For nearly 2,000 years, these scrolls were considered impossible to read. That changed with the Vesuvius Challenge. In 2023, tech leaders and academics offered a $1 million prize: digitally unroll a scroll using CT scanning and machine learning and extract real text from inside. Micro-CT scanners produced thousands of internal layers, like peering into the heart of a fossilized brain. But seeing ink within carbonized folds required AI capable of detecting microscopic variations invisible to humans. And then the impossible happened. In October 2023, a college student, Luke Farritor, became the first person in nearly 2 millennia to read a word sealed inside one of the Herculaneum scrolls. The word was porphyras, purple, the color of royalty and power. That one word broke history open. By early 2024, Farritor, joined by Yusuf Nada and Julian Schilliger, decoded over 2,000 Greek letters. The scroll's author was soon identified: Philodemus, an Epicurean philosopher who challenged religious dogma and political authority. But the content was startling. Fragments described cycles of fire, periods of enforced silence, a strategic quietude used by rulers during predicted upheavals, a smoke of renewal that returns when the light goes out. Symbolic? Perhaps. But this was written before Vesuvius erupted, not after. Had Philodemus anticipated disaster, or was he describing a different kind of collapse? Political, ideological, or something far more literal? Some scholars insist these metaphors are philosophical. Others whisper a more unsettling possibility, that the scroll warned of events humanity has yet to fully understand. Academics are divided. AI cannot differentiate metaphor from prediction. It simply extracts structure. It shows us what is there without filtering terror or meaning. Is it coincidence? Is it ancient philosophy? Or are we uncovering warnings left behind by civilizations that understood collapse better than we do? Some call it paranoia, others call it symmetry. But those who read power, silence, and fire as the vocabulary of empires, they call it something older, a prophecy rediscovered by a machine. Engines that unmask what time tried to bury. Artificial intelligence is reshaping our understanding of ancient texts in ways that once seemed impossible. How can a machine interpret a scroll burned into charcoal, or make sense of symbols carved 5,000 years ago into stone, wood, or bone? The simplest explanation is pattern recognition, but the deeper truth is far more complex and far stranger. AI doesn't read the way humans do. It doesn't need vocabulary, syntax, or cultural context. It doesn't care about meaning at all. Instead, it studies relationships, which symbols tend to appear together, how often they repeat, where they occur inside a text, how they're spaced, and what surrounds them. To accomplish this, these systems rely on 3 powerful techniques: language modeling, character segmentation, and symbol clustering. Language modeling is built on immense datasets, sometimes thousands of pages of inscriptions, images, and transcriptions. The AI isn't learning definitions, it's learning patterns of expectation. Think of it as an enormous predictive engine. If a symbol frequently appears before another across hundreds of contexts, the model begins to anticipate that relationship. If a segment of text is damaged or missing, the AI can offer a statistically likely reconstruction of what once filled the gap. Character segmentation tackles the physical challenge of damaged manuscripts. Letters often bleed into each other. Ink fades. Surfaces erode. What the human eye reads as a blur, AI can separate into distinct components. It identifies where one character ends and the next begins, carving clarity out of chaos. It's the digital equivalent of isolating one whisper in a crowded hall until you can finally make out the words. Symbol clustering carries the process even further. Once individual characters are isolated, the AI begins grouping them by shape, position, and usage. This is essential in undeciphered languages like the Indus script or rongo-rongo, if recurring clusters consistently appear in similar positions within inscriptions. The system can make educated guesses. This might be a name, that might be a verb. These might represent numbers or ritual elements. The machine identifies structure long before meaning becomes clear. Some of the most advanced tools are already rewriting what we know about ancient writing. Proto-Snap, for example, was developed for the tangled universe of cuneiform. Because cuneiform was pressed into clay with reed styluses, not carved, it varies wildly in appearance depending on the scribe, region, and era. Proto-Snap unifies these chaotic forms. It aligns every variant of a character into a single conceptual category, giving the AI a coherent alphabet to work with. It's like teaching a child that A is still A, whether it's printed, cursive, sloppy, or ornate. Hiero-LM does something similar for Egyptian hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs aren't merely pictures, they can represent sounds, ideas, or entire words. They're one of the most intricate writing systems ever devised. Hiero-LM applies modern translation logic, predicting which symbols naturally follow others based on grammar and frequency. When a carving is damaged or a glyph is missing, the model can propose what probably belonged there, an unprecedented tool for deciphering texts too degraded for human interpretation. Even more astonishing breakthroughs are coming from deep learning tools built for palimpsests, manuscripts where the original writing was scraped away and overwritten. Sometimes parchment was too costly to waste. Sometimes the content was politically inconvenient or heretical. These erased layers were meant to vanish forever. But today, techniques like reflectance transformation imaging capture the micro-grooves left by long-lost ink. Paired with GANs, neural networks trained to reconstruct images through adversarial refinement, AI can resurrect writing that hasn't been seen in centuries. One network attempts to recreate the lost text. Another tries to detect imperfections. They duel until the recreation is nearly indistinguishable from the original. This method famously revealed unknown mathematical writings by Archimedes buried beneath a medieval prayer book. But not all palimpsests hide benign knowledge. Some contain suppressed teachings, forbidden ideas, political dissent, and accounts of disasters someone deliberately erased. And that is where the unease begins. AI is unlocking knowledge that remained sealed for millennia, texts that may have been hidden intentionally, warnings and rituals and cosmologies that ancient scribes thought too dangerous, too sacred, or too damning to preserve openly. References to collapse, cycles of fire, moral decay, and orchestrated silence appear not in one culture, but across many, scattered continents apart. Perhaps we are projecting modern anxieties onto ancient metaphors, or perhaps we are witnessing patterns that earlier civilizations recognized long before us. So the deeper question lingers: are we finally recovering wisdom that was lost, or forcing open seals that were never meant to be broken? Whispers from the first civilizations. Some of the earliest messages ever carved by human hands were not meant for us. They were etched into bone, pressed into clay, carved into stone, or woven into cloth by people who vanished thousands of years ago. People whose cities are dust and whose languages have no living speakers. For millennia, these writings sat in silence, unreadable, uninterpreted, untranslatable. Now, suddenly, they are being read, not by scholars, but by machines. And what AI is discovering is unsettling. It isn't just identifying symbols, it's detecting structure, intention, patterns that imply these marks were not random scratches, but deliberate language. And for the first time, we are beginning to grasp what these ancient voices may have been trying to say. Take ancient China, where writing began as a way of seeking answers from the unseen. During the Shang dynasty, around 1300 BCE, diviners inscribed questions onto turtle shells and ox bones, oracle bones that now represent some of the oldest written texts in East Asia. These weren't poems or historical records, they were questions, carved before being cracked by heat. The fissures were read as divine replies. The inscriptions that remain show us what people feared. Will plague come this season? Will war break out? Will the sky be clear? Will the sacrifice be accepted? For generations, scholars deciphered them slowly, comparing archaic characters to modern Chinese. But in 2024, Chinese researchers introduced AI models, trained on hundreds of thousands of digital glyphs. These systems began matching damaged oracle bone symbols to their later forms with astonishing accuracy, and the patterns they revealed went far beyond ritual, repeating cycles of famine, outbreaks of disease, celestial anomalies, warnings of instability. The bones weren't merely windows into the past, they were tools for predicting and controlling the future. Travel forward a millennium and move across the Pacific, and you reach the world of the ancient Maya. Their cities rose in the jungles of southern Mexico and Central America, built around towering pyramids and meticulously carved stone monuments. Their writing system, dense clusters of intricately designed glyphs, was long considered indecipherable. Each symbol could stand for a sound, a word, an idea, or all three at once. But machine learning has transformed Maya studies. AI systems trained on tens of thousands of glyph images can now segment, classify, and reconstruct damaged text with precision unthinkable a decade ago. What emerges from these translated inscriptions is a record of dynasties rising and collapsing, of droughts, wars, blood rituals, and strange astronomical cycles. One haunting phrase appears repeatedly across different cities: the Great Thirsting, a period of catastrophic drought. But the inscriptions go further, describing rituals meant to steady the heavens and calm the trembling earth. Were these metaphors? Or were the Maya struggling against forces, natural or otherwise, that they couldn't control? And then there is Nushu, a script unlike any other. Born in the mountains of Hunan, China, it was created and used exclusively by women who had no access to formal education. Passed down secretly through generations, Nushu appeared in songs, letters, embroidered cloth, and poems written in thin, slanted characters that looked almost like threads. For decades, scholars treated it as a cultural curiosity, but in 2025, an AI project using only a few dozen bilingual texts trained a deep learning model to decode Nushu with unprecedented accuracy. What surfaced was not decorative poetry, it was testimony. Words of sorrow, captivity, resilience. Warnings hidden within metaphors. Phrases like "the sorrow beneath silence" and "daughters unseen by the sun." One partially decoded line spoke of a grief that walks with the moonlight. These were not just messages, they were laments preserved in secret. Across these civilizations, from Asia to the Americas, AI is pulling long-buried languages back into human awareness. And the machines don't see culture, trauma, censorship, or ritual. They only see patterns. And the patterns repeat: plague, drought, silence, suppression, collapse. Civilizations separated by oceans and millennia wrote about the same fears, the same cycles, the same shadows. But it's not only what they wrote, it's how their voices vanished. The Maya abandoned their cities. Oracle bone divination faded into bureaucracy. Nushu dissolved under modern schooling. In every case, the language fell silent. Now machines are resurrecting those voices, letter by letter, glyph by glyph. What happens when we finally understand their full message? Will we still call it history or a warning? Languages that were silenced and the ones we were never meant to read. Some writing systems evolved, some survived, but many didn't simply fade. They disappeared abruptly, deliberately, as if someone erased them from the world. Today, we call these lost languages. But what if they weren't lost at all? What if they were buried? Latin endured for millennia. Chinese evolved into modern forms. Yet equally sophisticated systems disappeared almost overnight. Some were overwritten by force. Others collapsed with their civilizations. But a few, disturbingly, look like they were silenced on purpose. Consider Rongorongo from Easter Island, one of the most puzzling scripts ever discovered. Carved into wooden tablets with a unique reverse line writing direction, the symbols resemble nothing else on Earth. By the time Europeans arrived in the 19th century, no one alive could read the script. Disease, enslavement, and conversion shattered the island's culture. And whatever Rongorongo recorded, genealogies, rituals, prophecies, is locked away forever. Some researchers believe it was created as the society crumbled, a coded attempt to preserve warnings outsiders weren't meant to understand. Or take Etruscan, once spoken across Italy before Rome swallowed it. Thousands of inscriptions survive, religious texts, tomb offerings, legal formulas. We can pronounce the words, we know the alphabet, but meaning remains elusive because Etruscan has no linguistic relatives. Rome tolerated many religions, but certain Etruscan rites, especially those connected to prophecy and the afterlife, were banned. Some scholars suspect the Romans deliberately suppressed aspects of Etruscan culture that conflicted with imperial ideology. Fragments hint at celestial omens, catastrophic cycles, and doctrines the Romans may have found politically dangerous. Was Etruscan knowledge erased or extinguished? Then there is the Voynich manuscript, perhaps the most infamous unreadable book on Earth, filled with looping script and bizarre illustrations, unknown plants, mysterious diagrams, nude figures in strange pools. It has resisted every decipherment. Some argue it's a hoax, others insist it's an encoded language. When AI researchers applied machine translation algorithms in 2018, they proposed that parts may represent altered Hebrew, stripped of vowels, scrambled into coded phrases. Their interpretations described herbs, baths, and female-centered practices. One theory suggests the book was a manual of secret women's knowledge, hidden deliberately to keep it safe from male authorities in a Europe hostile to such autonomy. In every case, the silence feels intentional. Civilizations don't just forget entire writing systems overnight. Scripts don't vanish unless someone or something makes them vanish. History tells us that conquering powers rewrite languages. New religions erase old symbols. Governments suppress dangerous knowledge. But what if some of these lost scripts were suppressed because of what they contained? Maybe it was too threatening, too prophetic, too destabilizing. And now, AI is digging them back up, without hesitation, without caution, without fear. A machine will read anything, no matter why it was hidden. It doesn't care if the knowledge was forbidden, sacred, or dangerous. It will unveil whatever is there. The real question is, are we ready for that? Because eventually, one of these ancient languages may reveal something humans were never meant to read, something that survived only because it remained hidden. What happens when the machines finally decode it? And what happens if we don't like the answer? If you want to be here when that happens, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us, because the next discovery might change everything we thought we knew about the ancient world and our future.